Chief Revenue Officer of Tamer, and I'm excited to host today Vita Bao, who's the Director of Data Governance for Raymond James. Hi, Vita. Thanks for joining me today, and congratulations on being selected to be part of this distinguished group of women leaders.
Hey, Melissa, I'm happy to chat with you. I'm not sure how it happened, but I appreciate the recognition.
No, it's awesome. Really good. So I figured we could just jump right in. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
All right. So I think let's just start by seeing if you can tell us a little bit about your career and maybe what brought you to data and how you ended up there.
Absolutely. I started my career as an accountant. So, as anyone knows, any accountant, data is your bread and butter, right? You are kind of the steward or the person responsible for data. So, did accounting, I've done auditing, and loved those roles, but learned quickly that I need a little bit more spice and variety in my life. So migrated away from accounting and audit into reporting, because reporting is exciting, right? There's spice. So in doing reporting, I quickly learned that, one of the core challenges that we encountered every quarter in, every month in, every year in were challenges with data. And that then caused me to change to become a person, I guess, a data evangelist, right? I took the challenges, and because I'm not a fan of Groundhog Day, I said, look, how do I fix these problems so that I'm not facing them every single cycle? And that then led me down the path of data, right? Understanding the issues with, master data, or understanding the fact that folks didn't understand some of the data choices they were making as they were booking transactions, right, et cetera, which then turned into training and education around data, et cetera. So became a data enthusiast out of self-defense because it was a recurring challenge for me. But now I'm in love with all things data, right? Data management, data governance, et cetera, and have been focused on that in the later years of my career.
So what brought you to Raymond James?
Well, who doesn't love Florida,
Yes.
right? So that's always a plus when the company's headquartered in sunny Florida. And I'm a native Floridian, so it's time for me to come back home to look after my elderly parents. So that was priority number one. And then it was awesome when I found a data job at Raymond James in Florida. So it's like, okay, yeah, it's time. The stars and the moon and everything just aligned, and here I am doing a data governance startup at Raymond James in Florida.
That's wonderful. So why don't you tell us, what are some of the projects you're most excited about or proud of?
So when I think about what gets me excited, honestly, it's not specific projects. I get excited about the people and the partnerships that I've experienced throughout my career. I get excited when, we're able to make connections with people in the organization and help them to understand how data can help to improve the efficiency of their processes, right? And just make their lives easier. I get excited when I get to partner with great colleagues inside the organization and vendor partners outside the organization who are super smart in terms of understanding their business domain, super smart in terms of understanding, what's happening in the data discipline, or about technology and innovation. Like, those are the things that get me really, really excited. I've come in my later years to understand or to appreciate the process, right? In terms of how I get to the end result in a project, as much as, or even maybe even more than the end result of a given project. I could talk about multi-million-dollar initiatives with tool onboarding and process implementations, but yeah, it's the people. It's the people and it's the partnerships that really, really, makes me excited, and gives me reinvigorates my excitement.
No, that's awesome. So I guess on the flip side of that, what would you see are some of the toughest challenges you've had to deal with or experience in regards to handling data or in digital transformation overall?
Look, I'm gonna go back to the fundamentals. Data quality is hands down the biggest challenge that I've consistently faced throughout my career, in data organizations and outside of data organizations, right? I don't care how much transformation you do. I don't care how much digitization you do, right? At the core of most things is data. And if the data is dirty, if the data is not, accurate, complete, etc., then you're going to have challenges, right, with any initiative. AI built on top of dirty data, right, is useless. It's going to give you, it's going to yield, an inaccurate or incorrect result. So quality and I'll say complacency around that quality, right, is the biggest challenge that I've seen. So, the question is, how do you ask, an already oversubscribed population to do more with respect to data quality? How do you convince folks that it's important to focus on data quality, or how to raise the bar with respect to data quality when they're already time constrained, right, resource constrained? It's art and science, right? You have to really win over the hearts and minds of folks. You really have to build a compelling business case and help them understand kind of the downstream, the long-term and lasting impacts, right, of quality on the overall organization and its ability to continue as a going concern. So that to me, I would say is the biggest challenge. And if anybody has a magic button that will solve that, call me up.
All right. Well, maybe we will call you from Tamer because that's the biggest thing we solve in regards to, we call it garbage in, garbage out, right? Like, so
Absolutely.
yeah, no, I love that. Thank you for that answer. When you think about how data and analytics are serving your company, how do you see it evolving and what do you think is really needed to achieve better business results? Other than, I guess, data quality, what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the evolution is awesome. I think it's excellent that folks are recognizing the importance of data more and more. I think that the recognition is going to be further bolstered when I see a chief data officer reporting directly to a CEO, right? With strong ties to the board of directors, right? I think that'll go a long way. Just basically saying that, data is at the core of everything that we do. So we need to get this right as an organization, versus it being, the tail wagging the dog, if you will, right? Constantly like pulling teeth, just trying to get a data initiative right off the ground and funded and resourced and staffed appropriately. So I think that's a huge change that would help, or that hopefully will come about in the coming years. I think that having the regulators constantly focus on data risks and controls, having the second and third line functions constantly focus on data risks and control will help to bolster, right, our ability to continue to push and to encourage data literacy and to formally recognize, right, those risks. So again, having that CDO who is right pushing that agenda is important. And I think, we're going to see a change in terms of us formally recognizing the monetization of data, right?
Mhm.
It is truly, right, an asset, right, which in theory should be valued on the balance sheet that does generate real revenue, right, which we should see on the P&L. I think when that happens, then there will be no question that CDO, right, is, as important as any other line of business head, right, within the organization, will be given much more gravitas, I'll say, within, each organization or each institution.
Well, that's music to my ears, everything you were just saying, for sure, and the problems that we're trying to solve. When it comes to kind of that triangle of technology, people, process, what do you think, which part of that do you think is the most challenging, and how do you guys at Raymond James make it work together?
So, I mean, technology is constantly evolving, right? We're always going to have, new toys to play with, in the toy box, right? That do amazing things, right? The thing with technology is there's always going to be a technology solution to most problems. The question is, do you have the money, right? Do you have the people to put behind it? Right. So I'm going to take technology out of the triangle because there's always, right, some great innovative solution to solve many, many problems.
Hmm.
So then that leaves people, right, and process. Yeah. And so process, right, to me is a function of people, right? Process is defined by a person, right? Has to be implemented generally by a person, or a person is leveraging technology, et cetera. So I'm going to get back to people, right? People, we have to win the hearts and minds of people across the organization, across the institution, in order to truly, right, address some of the challenges that we have within the data space. And, oftentimes I encounter that people just aren't aware. They just don't know, right? It's
Mhm.
not that I think, at the core, people want to do the right thing. They want to do a really, really good job, but often they just don't know. They don't know that what they're doing is, outdated or not good enough for, some purpose, et cetera. So I think, people would be, number one for me, and we need to definitely focus more and spend more time and energy, right, and getting people educated, getting folks excited and energized, right, and equipped, right, in order to help us to advance, the agenda, and to help us to make sure that we have the right processes and controls in place, to make sure we have the right technology implemented appropriately, et cetera. It's really a mind shift, right? We have to stop using, 1980 solutions to 2020 problems. And we see this over and over again, right? We look at architecture diagrams, it's like, what are we doing, folks? Right? We look at, design documents for, technology initiatives or change projects, and it's like, are we really thinking about this the best way? Again, that comes down to people, right? People need to be well equipped and well versed to make better decisions and to, take better actions as we are managing change throughout our organization, which impacts data, as we're managing ongoing operational activities, right, within our organization, and as we're visioning, right, and planning and strategizing for the future. Long-winded answer, but
No, it's so relevant. But so so people are the critical crux. I heard that in the triangle. But when you do need a technology, there is a lot of noise in the market, as you indicated, about bright shiny objects and new tools. How is it that you personally learn about new technologies, or what makes you navigate to try a certain new technology?
yeah, honestly, I learn about new technologies by reading,
Mhm.
right? So there are often great articles that come out that will help to highlight kind of what's happening in the marketplace. Of course, you have your Gartners and the folks that'll do the comparisons and the rankings, et cetera. So that is helpful for sure. Um, I also rely on advice from vendor partners, right? So I can't spend my entire day, right, chasing or observing or monitoring every right tool that's out there in the marketplace. So I rely on my vendor partners
Mhm.
who I have relationships with, right, to talk through the pros and cons and to provide advice and their viewpoints on tools. And then lastly, I'll say that I also rely on my colleagues, right, my peers in the industry, right? So after you've been in industry for 25 plus years, right, you kind of know a few folks. So, I rely on, their feedback on, what are you using at your
Mhm.
organization and how is that working for you, right? What are the drawbacks that you're seeing, right, et cetera. So that would be the last source of information, right, in terms of tool selection. And sometimes, like, even with all of those inputs, you don't know what you don't know, right? You think that you have the right answer, and sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. So I think it's really, really important for vendors to really stay close post implementation and to provide those additional services around customization, right, or product expansion, et cetera, to make sure that their solutions really work for the customer that they've sold them.
Yeah, it's all about adding value, and our one of our sayings at Tamer is customer success is our success. So that part is really so crucial to ongoing, value add for all customers like Raymond James. So I guess my last question would be, a few years from now, what do you see, or what do you think are going to be some of the biggest changes we're going to see in regards to data management within an organization?
Biggest changes, my hope, okay, so I have a dream. I have a dream that one day um data management will be just as prominent as risk management. Okay. Everyone in financial services understands risk management. You understand your organization's risk appetite. You understand what your role is in the risk management process. You attest to the fact that you understand these things, and there's specific steps that you do to assess, right, your risks and your controls, and to self-identify where you're doing well and you're not doing well, and you have an action plan to fix your challenges. That's all we need for data, right? That's all. That's it. So I
Simple.
have a dream. I have a dream that one day, right, we'll have that discipline in place as it relates to data. I also have a dream that one day data is going to become just as second nature as waking up and brushing your teeth, right? Managing data and managing data quality should just become a natural part of what we do. It's like blinking, it's like breathing, it's like, personal hygiene, right? No one has to tell you to do it,
Right.
right? You just do it. And when you don't do it well, someone, maybe a close friend, hopefully, or family member is going to say, you know what? Maybe you didn't brush your teeth today. You know, can you maybe address that? You know, so we need to get to that point where it's just ingrained in everything that we do, right? Data governance, data management, data quality just needs to become a natural part of our existence within the organization.
No, that's great. Well, maybe I fibbed a little bit. I do have one last question.
Oh boy.
This is an easy one though. Um, we've all experienced really, dramatic changes and challenges with COVID-19, and I just wanted to see how the pandemic has impacted Raymond James. And were you able to use data for any of the challenges, or just in general, how did the pandemic impact your company?
Yeah, these are definitely unprecedented times. I don't think there's anyone on the globe that hasn't been impacted by this pandemic. It certainly changed the way that we work.
Mhm.
So we're all accustomed, or most of us are accustomed to driving to the office, right, to work X number of hours a day. Most of our teams are now working remotely. Um, but the good news is that, we were prepared. We had those remote work options in place. The technology existed. It was just a matter of activating it for those who hadn't used those options before. So that's different.
Mhm.
But the good news is that, we're still interacting well with each other. We're still, providing support to each other. And we're still absolutely servicing our clients. So that commitment, right, to our clients and to each other hasn't changed during this pandemic, which is awesome. And I think it's also awesome that it's really shown the strength of our culture. It's really
Mhm.
brought to the forefront, right? That when we say, we're in the business of people, like it's really come through. Folks have a level of flexibility to manage, personal situations. If you have children at home that you have to worry about doing the homeschooling as well as work, it's like we work around it. We're accustomed now to hearing barking dogs and children running around in the background of a Zoom. It's okay. And we've encouraged them to come into the screen because we want to see, the cute furry creatures and the little people and all that stuff, right? So that's definitely different. And I think, like, in terms of using data, so we use data, as you would in any normal operations, to like track call volumes, to track system monitoring, right? Network capacity, et cetera. So that's all data. So that helped us to understand, where do we need to reallocate resources to deal with higher volumes in a certain area, where do we need to check our capacity to handle, right, higher trade volumes, and of course, the monitoring, data from outside of the organization. So market volatility, there were some high trading days out there,
Mhm.
so we were kind of looking at that volatility as an indicator of, okay, what's to come, so of course, data is at the center of all of that, right, during the apex, I'll say, of the market volatility during the pandemic. And then now, as we're thinking about returning to office or even monitoring folks who are not in the office, we're using data to collect and track that information to understand, who's working remotely, who's planning to return to the office. And for those who are returning to the office, collecting data as it relates to their health attestation or other information, right, that's relevant for folks who want to go back on site. So again, data is at the
Mhm.
core of most things that we do, right? Whether it's related to our core business and processes or related to managing our employees or just navigating our personal lives, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No. Well, Vita, this has been truly a pleasure for me personally. And I think some of your information and answers were super helpful. And I just want to thank you again for joining us today and for taking the time. And for all those watching, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews like Vita's.